The reason you keep ending up with the wrong people is because you don't love yourself and you accept the love that you think you deserve. Stop relying on other people to provide for you something that you are unwilling to give yourself. It's easy to blame other people in your life who have caused you pain, whether it be growing up with emotionally unavailable parents or even abusive parents. Not to say that your trauma is not valid. It is valid, and it can be a great way to understand why you are the way you are and be able to analyze your patterns and break out of it. But these are not excuses, they're just explanations. At the end of the day, when you're a grown adult and you have the right circumstances to take care of yourself, there's no one else to blame but yourself for when you're lacking in these areas. If you're still waiting for someone, whether it be a partner, even a parent, or a friendship, to fill this void, you're going to keep finding the same pain again and again and again because you have not fully healed yet. I grew up with a very toxic household and my parents were very angry people. And I had found that in high school, I kept getting myself into these situations where I would find the same person in the same font in different people again and again. And in all these boys, there were the same common factor of anger, possessiveness, jealousy. When you're weak and hurt and vulnerable, these boys will look at you and see you as prey, as much as that's harsh to hear. But you're an easy target for them because they know that you will love them more than you love yourself. And so in my past and only relationship, I was with him for 2 years, and at the very beginning I thought that it was everything I had ever wanted, like the boy of my dreams, and he was very different from the previous boys I had ever talked to, and so I thought I had finally broken out of the cycle. But truthfully, I was looking at our relationship through rose-colored glasses because there were so many red flags that I missed. It was the same ones that I had seen in other boys too, like the anger, the possessiveness, the jealousy that I mentioned earlier. But I was so blinded by love and the fact that I had loved him so much more than I loved myself, and I could not admit to myself that this love was unhealthy for me. This is not uncommon. I hear it a lot, and psychology proves this, that you are constantly going to be attracted to things you're familiar with, whether it hurts or not, because comfort shows in shapes that we've already seen before. And so the dynamic repeats, the wounds reopen. So you end up in this loop of toxic love where you're just receiving scraps and you start mistaking chaos for passion. So even in my past relationship, when things would go wrong, we would argue, things would get aggressive and out of hand. To me, in my head, I thought, oh, this was normal because that was a household I grew up in where that was also normal to us. But after 2 years, I finally broke down and I finally decided to leave. And it's been 2 years since the breakup and I have not decided to date since. That's because in those 2 years, I have been able to provide everything for myself that I could ever want in an ideal partner, in an ideal parent, in an ideal friendship, any sort of relationship I've been able to offer myself. And then in the very beginning, it was very hard because I was very codependent with my previous partner, and I would go to him for comfort when I needed emotional stability. And when I felt lonely, he was the first person I would go to. So to break out of that cycle, I started to kind of play this role. It might sound delusional, it might sound psycho, but it genuinely does help when you put things into perspective and when you love others so much more than you love yourself. So I'll use a simple example. Something that was very hard for me was getting out of bed in the morning and cooking myself a nourishing meal, even getting up to take a sip of water when I'm dehydrated and parched. And so in that situation, when I'm laying in bed and trying so hard to get myself up, I ask myself this question, which is, if you had an ideal partner or any sort of relationship that you're looking to fill this void right now, what is it that you would want them to do for you? And so in that moment, obviously the answer would be for them to get out of bed, cook me a nourishing meal, get me a cup of water, right? And so I implemented that, and I would just tell myself, okay, then go do that. And I also kind of turned that same question around, but in a 360 perspective, where I switched the roles a little bit, where in my head I was thinking, okay, if I had an ideal partner and he or she was saying this thing to me like, oh, I'm so hungry, but I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, I'm so thirsty, what would you do? And obviously I would get up and I would cook them a nourishing meal and I would provide them a cup of water. And so in my head, I was like, okay, if I'm willing to go do that for someone else, why would I not be willing to do that for myself? And so that would humble me, and I would get out of bed and I would cook a nourishing meal and I would get myself a cup of water. And so when I was tempted to harm myself with thoughts or actions, I would also think to myself, is this something I would do to my partner? No, I would never do that. So why would I go and do that to myself? And sometimes self-love isn't even always just like a big act. For me, it could be not eating junk food and making myself a good meal instead. Or it can be stopping myself when I feel lonely and feel the urge to go reach out to someone who does not deserve my time and my energy and my presence. So in these weak moments, I would ask myself this question: if my ideal partner were here, how would they treat me? And I would also ask myself, if I had my ideal partner, how would I treat them? These two questions really helped me out, and it was able to help me imagine the kind of love that I had dreamed of. A love that was gentle, a love that was soft, and a love that was protective and respectful. And all these things that I had dreamed of in this version, I was able to offer it for myself. So over time, I stopped needing to ask myself this silly question. Maybe when I'm having really hard days, like everyone does, because I'm only human, I would still need to ask myself this question. But as soon as I asked myself this question and I realized I would be willing to do this for another person in a second without a hesitant thought, I get out of bed because I'm like, you know, I deserve this too. Like, humble yourself a little bit. At the end of the day, it's rough, but it works. And so self-love became second nature for me, and I was really able to raise my standards, and this allowed me to deny access to anyone who did not deserve it. Now when I decide to let someone into my life, it's not out of desperation and it's not out of loneliness. It's out of a want for someone to add something into my life, not to fill a void or to fill a hole. If the question thing is too vague for you and it doesn't really seem to click with you, another thing I do for myself is identify one negative thing in that relationship that really bothered you. So my past relationship, a thing that really left an impact on me was the way that he wouldn't keep his word and the way that I would keep allowing him chances after chances, even though I knew in my heart he would not keep his word. In order to heal that part of me, I've decided to make a promise for myself every single day and to keep my word on it. So if you're gonna tell yourself, for example, I'm gonna go to the gym today, go to the gym today. If you tell yourself, I'm gonna wake up early at this time today, then do that. Set a promise for yourself. Don't set something unrealistic where it's like a whole day planned out of like things you probably will not get to. No, start out small with a small promise, whether it be wake up in the morning, boil myself some hot water, or go to bed a little earlier, things like this. Start out small. Don't start out with a huge promise you know you probably will not be able to keep to yourself, because then you're going to keep repeating that cycle of not keeping your word. And so for me, in the very beginning of this process, I did not trust myself at all, because I knew if I'm going to say something like, I'm going to go to the gym today, I'm probably not going to go to the gym today. But now when I say something to myself, I really mean it. And I know I'm going to keep my word and I'm going to do it because I've trust myself and I've developed this strong relationship with myself where I truly love myself. Now I see not keeping promises to myself as disrespect. This really helped me nourish my own relationship with myself, because I have always struggled with self-love, and for me it's always so much easier to go and love someone else than it is to love myself. So when I switched the perspective and I was like, okay, well, what if I was another person? Why would I ever treat myself like this? I would not. And so I think this is a practice that a lot of lover people can use, and it might be a lot easier than just setting certain goals for yourself, because it will really change your mindset on how you see it. In the 2 years since the breakup, I've made so much progress, and self-love has become second nature for me now. Now, keeping promises to myself and doing something nice for myself is not something I really have to will myself to go and do. It's something I can do naturally, but these things take time. So I do hope that you give yourself grace and you're patient with yourself. I've really raised my standards in these past years. I've stopped giving people access to my life and to me who do not deserve it. And now when I let someone into my life, it's not out of desperation, it is not out of loneliness, but it is the want for someone else to add something onto my life. So if you want to break out of the cycle of ending up with the wrong people again and again, stop searching outward, stop searching and looking at other people, but look inward and at yourself. Provide for yourself what you have lacked, and love yourself in ways that no one else ever has and ever will be able to. When you do decide to let someone into your life again, it will be someone who adds to your life and not out of necessity. And because life is full of uncertainties and change, even if this relationship doesn't end out, at least you'll know that you'll be okay and that you have yourself and that you're able to provide everything that you could possibly need for yourself. So please prioritize your self-love, and I can promise you that if you do and you love yourself more than you can ever love anyone else, you will never find yourself in a situation where you are with the wrong person. Throughout this whole journey, I hope you'll be as forgiving and as graceful as you are with yourself than you are with other people. So start your promise to yourself today. Start asking yourself these questions every day, and little by little, I promise that when you go and look back, you will realize how far you've come.